I felt as though that light was the primary element in filmmaking, that light was the emotion in film. The camera was just a observing media. And if you didn't light it properly, you probably didn't get the reaction from your audience that you wanted to get. The camera can only record what you do out there in front of the camera. It can't create the emotion. I think much of the emotion we talk about in terms of film noir is all lighting. Our sense of mystery, our sense of the unknown, our sense of the unease all comes from lighting. Our sense of well-being in a film comes from lighting. So to me, lighting was the primary element in the whole media process. And I really began to love the creative possibilities of light. So I began to study it in detail in terms of every element of, what is a photon, how fast does the light arrive from the sun to Earth? Elements, what is refraction, what is reflection, began to understand what's happening with light. And made an interesting discovery when I was working on astronomers, from a lady who was capturing the light from stars and putting it on a slide and then examining the light to find out what the elements of that particular star cluster was about. And what her constant work over something like 50 years, and she had this entire room that had all these slides from all these planetary, clusters and suns, and I remember her conversation, and one of the things she made is a discovery that what she was looking at was only 5% of what was there, because 95% of the universe does not emit or reflect light. And then she made an interesting discovery. She says, right here in this room, what you're seeing here is only 5% of what's really here.
Why is that?
Because all we're looking at is reflected light. That's the only reality that we as human beings, because we're light chauvinists, perceive as reality.
How can you relate that 5% notion to filmmaking?
Well, it just means that there's a reality beyond that which the camera can capture. And, for instance, I never look at an image without wondering geographically, where is it? I mean, what's around it? What is the environment that it's in? So when I'm lighting something, I always try to bring in something from outside the frame that interacts with the action inside the frame. So when you're looking at an image that's in a very confined space as the frame, you must place it in a situation so that it has a geography to it.
Right.
Where is the sun? Where are the lighting instruments in the room? What is motivating the imagery that you're seeing? Because actually you're only looking at reflected light.
How do you...
All lights create photons. Okay? And what you're doing is filming reflected photons. So any instrument that creates photons can be used to make your image. You have certain pieces of equipment that make creating those images easier. Any light can light a subject. Some lights light a subject easier for you, faster for you, more efficient for you. You then, as a filmmaker, have to evaluate whether speed, efficiency, value is more important than the cost of the instrument. A lot of people say, gee, I got this really cheap light. Yeah, it was wonderful. You got this really cheap light. Now you turn it on, the subject, and it's a blaster, what I used to call a blaster. Open face light, hard light, and you look at your subject matter under that circumstance and you're going, I have to do something now to make that work. So now you put in diffusion in front of it, you begin to put more flags in front of it, you've got this whole entourage of equipment around your light in order to be able to make it do the job. Now, if you went out and bought a light that just did the job that you wanted it to do, it would cost you 4 times as much, but you wouldn't have the time, wouldn't need to have the time to be able to make the light work for you. And I think that's mainly what's going on with lighting today. LEDs, for instance. I think LEDs will eventually be the primary light source of all things in the universe, on our planet. LEDs will be our light source, and we'll probably have solar panels to be able to light them up. Ultimately, I think that's the way we're going to be using lighting in the future. Now, that may be 10 years from now, that may be 20 years from now, that may be 5 years from now. That's really here nor there.
Right.
But it will happen. And the main reason is not that the LED is a better light source than anything that's on the marketplace. It's just more efficient, simpler to operate, and you save money every time you turn it on. Let's say we got a studio and you put in LED lights in a studio. You're working a television studio and you put LED lights in the studio. You take all your tungsten lights out. 80% of your air conditioning cost is gone. 50% of your entire electric bill is gone. You'll never have to have your actor leave the room because it gets too hot. The time that you spend on the set then becomes twice as much, or I should say maybe a third as much a time that you're able to shoot continuously. So you're saving money the minute you put LEDs into your array of lights. We used to do a press junkets in which we would put half a dozen lights in each room, lighting up 2 people talking to each other. Okay. Inside the room there were 2 cameras, one looking at the talent and one looking at the critic that was basically questioning the talent. And press junkets are basically for your audience is a opening of a new movie, and they're talking to the actors, directors, cinematographers, and what they do is they call in from all over the country all the different critics of media, and then they have a personal interview with these people, and that they can take it back to St. Louis, Missouri, and say, I was sitting there talking to James Woods. In these particular things, we had to get a generator. We'd bring a generator, and we'd cable all the way up the building to the 5th floor. We'd go into a window, and we would put junction boxes in each window, and we would put 6 lights, all tungsten instruments, small instruments, because it was very... But the rooms would heat up to unbearable temperatures, and you could only be in there for about an hour at a time before you had to move the thing out and blow out the room with the fans. Besides that, you had this huge electric bill for this generator and the time to install it all. Now you could go in with that same situation, put in 6 lights, plug them all into one 20-amp circuit in the wall, and shoot all day long without any problem. You would save, I would say, probably a good 40% of your cost and get about 30 to 40% more time on screen.
But then there's also the issue of knowing how to use those lights.
Well, you had to learn to use the tungsten lights. You had to learn to use the Kinoflows. You had to learn to use the HMIs. What's the difference of learning to use the LEDs? I mean, it's just a it's a tool. You learn to work the tool. That's like saying, gee, you have to learn to drill a hole with a drill. Well, yeah, if you want to drill a hole, you have to learn to use the machine. And the same thing with lights. You learn to work with the instrument. I can remember when HMIs first came in. There was this huge hullabaloo about HMIs. You know, oh man, terrible instrument. Yeah, the carbon arc is so much better. Everything's so much better. Why do you use HMI? It's a lousy thing. Not only that, but it's dangerous. It's got this 40-to-1 step-up transformer in it. You know, my God, it's doing 40,000 volts in that transformer. And, my God, it's really dangerous. You know, terribly dangerous piece of equipment. Now, does anybody think about HMIs as that? It's the same instrument. Got the same problem. It's a gas discharge. It's got a green spike in it, and none of it has the same color temperature. Not one HMI has the same color temperature as the next one. Yet we use it all the time. So it's got inherent problems, but we've learned to work with it. We've learned to use it. Kino flows, when they first came out, they were like a piece of cardboard with a fluorescent light bulb in it. Terrible instrument when they first came out. But when you looked at them, you're like, wow. Gee, it's much better to use that as a fill light instead of my tungsten Mickey mole through diffusion and put a Kino flow there. Again, temperature in the room dropped because you used Kino flows. We had to go through 4 different types of ballasts ultimately because they manufactured such terrible pieces of equipment when it first came out. But the idea prevailed. And to me, the idea of LEDs will prevail.